Hello, this is a recording of a Winchester Heritage Open Days event live streamed in 2020. We hope you enjoy it.
Well, hello, I'm Jenny McRobert, local poet and member of Loose Muse Winchester. Welcome to this very special event to celebrate the life and poetry of Sue Wrinch, who died suddenly this July. Thanks to Sue, for the past 2 years, we've had the pleasure of reading our poetry in the beautiful surroundings of St Lawrence's Church, right in the heart of Winchester. Unfortunately, this year we're in strange times, as we all know, so we're broadcasting this from the comfort of our own homes. Sue was a lovely woman who overcame her natural shyness to create something really special in Loose Muse Winchester. She set up this monthly gathering in 2015 and booked a dazzling array of guest poets and authors, some of whom will be reading for us today. Sue was a fine poet herself, with 2 collections to her name. Today, to celebrate her life, our guest poets, authors, and members of Loose Muse will be reading a poem from one of Sue's collections, and then a poem of their own on the Heritage Open Day theme of hidden nature. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our first reader, Loose Muse member, Sue Spires.
Hello, I'm Sue Spires. I've been writing since 2006 when I started a BA in literature. I'm British Mensa's Sig Sec for poetry, Winchester Poetry Festival's treasurer and editor for the Open University Annual Anthology. One of my poems is carved in a park bench in Romsey by the artist Nicola Henshaw as part of her Romsey Canal project. I first met Sue at Hampshire Writer Society when she slipped a business card into my hand and said, "Do come along." And I found it such a supportive organisation with wonderful women readers, some of whom you're going to hear from. Sue's poem that I'll read is from her first collection, Down by Wild Water, and it's called Woods in Winter. Trees, doused and drenched by rain, stand darkly brooding. Tall totems, they have all, by turns, been stroked by nickel sunlight, licked by rain, and kissed by playful breezes. Now, lovelorn and alone, betrayed and left, they mourn lost season's touch. Sky lends its failing stone blue light as trees winter, comatose, cocooned torsos, till lovers' spring's soft touch returns to wake them. They stand, stock still under a sweep of sparking stars, waiting for the smell of spring and guarding their sacred memories of green. My poem is called Wheatfield with Cypresses, 1889, after Vincent van Gogh's. The paint is alive with harvest mistral, lines and curves of emerald cypress, the swirl of lemon-tipped wheat, mustard stalks, a suggestion of poppies low in the frame. One dark hill, out of kilter, as mountains pale towards turbulent cloud which sweeps eastwards. But where is the sun? Sky reflects water, not wheatfield, and there are no humans, no animals, nothing man-made except the wheat. Elsewhere, a farmer, a scythe, a miller, bread from an oven. He visits the cypresses many times, sits at a distance, up close, working their shades on canvas, trying to imitate what they give. He goes over and over his own imperfection, why no one wants what he offers. Who would buy anguish, Who would want these thoughts wrought in oil? Our next reader is Kathryn Bevis, and she's Hampshire Poet Laureate for 2020. Her poems have won recent awards, including first prize at the Poets and Players competition, first prize in the Against the Grain competition, and she was shortlisted for the 9 Arches Press Primus scheme. She's been longlisted in this year's Rialto and Live Canon International competitions. Kathryn teaches poetry writing skills to vulnerable adults in prisons, mental health and substance misuse settings. She is working towards her first collection. Kathryn.
Oh, thank you for the lovely intro, Sue. It's really sad, isn't it, that Sue's not here to hear us reading her work. But I know when I went to her funeral that I heard her poems read. I think 4 or 5 of them were read in the funeral. It was the most amazing thing because it felt like she was there with us. And this is one of the poems that was read on that occasion that really made me think of her. It's lovely. It's called Dawn Birth. Deep in the dark, I felt another rap on my flesh walls. An ache began, long and deep, a blood call rippling. Water broke free, waving you on in its rush. A boy travelling darkling through an unlit womb, only my sonar heart as guide. I couldn't lie still, but paced, lowing, crouching moonripe, calling to stars to see us safe. Just as light began to blanch sky, you landed, little fish, air fresh on your skin, dawn washing your face. And the poem I'll read of mine is called A Wedding. Whoops. That day the thrushes finally fledged. For weeks I'd heard his whistled songs to her at dawn. Now, 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 did he do it, did he do it? Then watched her plunge into the hedge, bringing grass, roots and moss to pearl with a busy beak. She stamped the floor with tiny feet, fed the cup with mud and spit, pressed her speckled belly to the curve until it grew the contours of a bird. As we sent out invitations to the feast, she laid a clutch of brilliant turquoise eggs. Day after day, she sat and hatched her bulge-eyed brood. It was a wide-beaked time that wore her sad and thin. I'd see them both, smashing snails against an anvil, bearing wet meat to their young. Then June came. As I stepped into my dress, Mother fastened silk-covered buttons with her crochet hook, and I watched the last chick totter at the nest's lip, held my breath while it fluttered, stretched and flew. I brought the lice-infested nest indoors to see a tangle of your hair strung gold against the brown. We have it still, her parting gift. It stinks of food, of flesh, this living mess, this coracle of scraps.
Thank you, Kathryn. Our next reader is Sally Russell. She supported Sue Wrinch from the inception of Loose Muse Winchester, designing and maintaining its website. Her recent work has been published by Axon with the University of Canberra, Bangor Literary Press, and Words for the Wild. Sally is a member of the Hampshire Writers' Society, where she regularly wins the monthly competitions, and the North Hampshire Stanza, and she's currently studying for an MA in creative writing. Sally.
Thanks, Sue. I knew Sue Wrinch for a number of years, and we used to attend poetry readings and events such as the Forward Prize together, both locally and in London. Sue was particularly fond of her eldest sister, Ruth, and we would often talk about her. So I'd like to read Sue's poem Stained Lips, which is about Ruth, and that's from her second collection. Stained Lips. Purplish black berries crowd before her like bees shouting their sweetness, inking her hands with dark juice. She sits down to eat, squandering syrup, taking into herself not just their ripe flesh, but a wildness that toasts her, a new hedge witch. Spikes of wine ride through her veins, changing what's inside. Half hidden in bramble, she knows she is safe now, even near spiders and worms. She whispers devotion, transformed by stained lips. Nature, her new deity. A couple of years ago, Sue and I attended Kim Moore's poetry workshop in Saint Ives. I wrote this poem while we were there, having listened to a busker on the seafront. It's called Postcard from Saint Ives. I wish you could see kids play barefoot on the sand, stretch your limbs on the beach. Living is easy. I wish you could watch the gulls dive, collide in a muddle, the fish are jumping. See the seagull with the broken leg, stealing chips from a paper cone. I wish you could hear the busker rasp your favourite song, but you have spread your wings and taken to the sky.
Thank you, Sally. Hello, my name's Louise Taylor. I'm another of the members of Loose Muse. I'm also co-founder and one of the editors of Words for the Wild, which is our Hampshire-based online platform for poetry and short fiction inspired by the natural world. Several of today's readers are published on the site, which we're really happy about. And Sue was too, and she was enormously supportive of the project right from its inception almost 3 years ago. However, the poem of hers that I'm going to read today isn't a Words for the Wild one. It's one that's a favourite of her daughter's. It's called Walk, Don't Run. And Sophie, this is for you. Walk, don't run. She began to run long before she walked or spoke, all in a rush to meet the wild world, tease out adventure, safety never a concern. In scarlet leather shoes, she later ran to school, tripping and slipping into girlhood, piecing puzzle bits together as she spun past, fast. Desperate to grow up, still running, she sang and danced and laughed, fought back, stayed sweet, while the smile at the side of her mouth said it all. And now, for my own poem, I'm going to take you on a different sort of walk, 250 miles or so north on the Wirral, where I grew up. It's called In Birkenhead Park. This is the park. This is the place where we walk, you and I, where feet meet paws and the light hangs grey over the horizon. Hair in bunches, one ribbon lost, I run at the swings, and you leap for my mittens, trailing on their elastic, until the seagulls trawling for food on the football pitch kick off a better game. With wheeled feet, I wobble downhill, past the rocks we like to climb, the ones the Victorians dug out to make our lake, the ones you were foraging among, looking for last night's fish and chip wrappers left by last night's teenagers. The lake path's a trail for me today, me riding and ringing my bell, you easy at this speed, dashing from dog friend to dog friend, into the lake, watching out for the geese, and back to me, always back to me. Dark past the bushes, the moon clutching at her cloud, and the stars too shy for this night. But you, trotting at my side, your body between those bushes and mine. This is the park, this is the place where we walked, you and I, where feet met paws, and the horizon grows gold because we were there. And now for the next reader, I'd like to introduce Mumbai-born Susmita Bhattacharya, who came to the UK after travelling the world on a series of oil tankers, which has to be the most exciting start to anybody's adult life that I've ever heard of. Currently teaching contemporary fiction on the master's programme at Winchester University, Susmita also facilitates writing for young people at the Mayflower Young Writers Workshops and is a mentor for the Middle Way Mentoring Project. Her first novel, The Normal State of Mind, was published by Parthian Books in 2015, and she's currently working on her second. Susmita is also an accomplished short story writer who's been commissioned by BBC Radio 4 and has both won and judged many competitions. Her short story collection, Table Manners, came out in 2018. Susmita.
Thank you, Louise, for that wonderful introduction. And yes, even I could never believe that I would start my married life on oil tankers. So that was really some experience. I would like to read Sue's poem, Reawakening. And I just wanted to say that Sue, when I moved to Winchester 5 years ago, Sue was so welcoming, and it was great that she introduced me to Loose Muse and supported my writing in many ways. So I'm going to read her poem, Reawakening, from Down by Wild Water. Reawakening. I had forgotten how it felt to bleed live color, to surge and spread with sharp, vibrant sound inside, or to be opened like a brand new day, then slowly close at last with orange dazzle in my head, complete with bronze on my horizon's pillow, feeling bathed in beauty, waiting willingly like a willow, but not weeping now. I wanted to also share with you one of my short stories that was on Radio 4 recently, was actually inspired by Loose Muse. And I set the story in Winchester in a poetry open mic session, which was very much the way Loose Muse runs. And I think I'm really happy that I was able to share that with Sue, before we lost her, and she was really happy that Loose Muse had inspired my story. But I'm going to read you my poem Sunday Lunch, which was again written in one of the Loose Muse workshops that was led by Hilary, who's here as well. So this is Sunday Lunch, which was published in the Mechanics Institute Review. It must begin with bitter gourd, deep-fried discs of acrid crunch to cleanse your palate of the week's insipid fare. Mash steaming hot rice with your fingers, mold into neat bowls, glistening with invitation. This is the proper way to begin Sunday lunch. Move on to slow-cooked dal, swirling in turmeric, warm cumin vapors, a ghee-glazed bowl of molten comfort. Sprinkle rock salt on fried potato chips, a spoonful of mango pickle from the tree in your mother's garden, under which you stole your very first kiss. Follow this with fish curry, not just any kind of fish, but the kind that swim in green-skinned rivers, littered with marigold garlands, spent clay lamps and prayers for the dead. If lucky, your tongue will remember the taste of that river, the bite of that flesh, the sting of the smoking hot mustard oil. Next, drop a spoonful of tomato chutney studded with pinpricks of nigella seeds onto your mother's stainless steel dish brought back from your last visit home. And you must, absolutely must wipe clean every drop of that chutney or a missed morsel of rice. Suck on your fingers one by one. Absorb the food, the past, the spirits. The dish should reflect your contented smile on its mirrored surface. Finally, Lie back and reflect on the meal. Sear it into your brain so you can release its warmth bit by bit through a week full of cold sandwiches, Rivita and cheese, ready salted crisps, until Sunday offers up its lingering hours again, and you begin once more, stirring your memories, your history, your dreams back to life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susmita. I'd now like to introduce another Winchester writer, Claire Fuller. Claire came to novels and short fiction via a first degree in sculpture and many years working as co-director of a local marketing agency. A short story slam at her local library in Winchester encouraged her to undertake an MA in creative and critical writing. Her first novel, Our Endless Numbered Days, published in 2015, won the Desmond Elliott Prize, and her second two novels were also both short or long-listed for a variety of awards, while her short fiction has won her the BBC Opening Lines Short Story Competition and the Royal Academy and Pindrop Short Story Award. Her fourth novel, Unsettled Ground, is due to be published in the UK by the Fig Tree imprint of Penguin next year, and she's currently working on her fifth novel. Claire.
Thanks, Louise. Sue was incredibly supportive of me and my writing, and every time I had a book published, she would invite me in to read a bit of it out at Loose Muse, and she invited me to her book club, and was just, yeah, wonderful, not only about poets, but about prose writers. So I would like to read Night Walk, which is from Down by Wild Water. I walk at twilight and begin to feel the creeping dark, watching as it blurs and smudges out detail. Rain falls gently, washing the land, rinsing with a quiet grace. Along darkening hedgerows I see spiderwebs, their silk sieving the wind. Soundless moths fly past me to a dip-dyed sky, soaking half the world in orange gold. Night begins to settle as colours fade. I lean into the dark, trusting blindly. I walk alone for a long while, touching stone, feeling earth, hearing small cries of the hunted, drinking in the night's mysteries, until at last I feel that, like the earth, I too am journeying around the sun. I can feel its light curving over the world, soon to be laid down at my feet as dawn. And then I'm going to read the first paragraph from my next novel, Unsettled Ground. It seemed to fit the theme quite well. The morning sky lightens and snow falls on the cottage. It falls on the thatch, concealing the moss and the mouse damage, smoothing out the undulations, filling in the hollows and slips, melting where it touches the bricks of the chimney. It settles on the plants and bare soil in the front garden, and forms a perfect mound on top of the rotten gatepost, as though shaped from the inside of a teacup. It hides the roof of the chicken coop and those of the privy and the old dairy, leaving a dusting across the workbench and floor where the window was broken long ago. In the vegetable garden at the back, the snow slides through the rips in the plastic of the polytunnel, chills the onion sets 4 inches underground, and shrivels the new shoots of the Swiss chard. Only the head of the last winter cabbage refuses to succumb, the interior leaves curled green and strong, waiting.
Thank you, Claire, and hello again. When I joined Loose Muse 5 years ago, I was so impressed by this modest, soft-spoken woman who blushed as she read her own beautiful words. The atmosphere that Sue created was completely supportive, and it gave me confidence to read my poems. So I went from being a fairly new poet to having quite a number of poems published and a publisher for my first collection. This is largely down to Sue and Loose Muse and the confidence that it gave me, and I will always be grateful. So I'm going to read from Sue's Stained Lips collection, the poem Changeling. Night, swimming under a swell of stars, she found her fins. A changeling child, her mother had said, only half in jest. But she recognized an unknown thing beneath her skin. A second self swam. Her mother's words pinched, insistent fingers trying to find a way in. Lay down a fat layer of obedience, which slipped off like butter. Blind in a windowless life, choked by rules, she longed to become her own fruit, fresh peeled, free from rigid skin. Unhindered, she began to change, split her cocoon open to show gauzy wings. And now I'd like to read my own poem, which is called Touched. Crunch cold. The unravelling path frays a spindling yarn, swirling violet and green in rain pools, like dreams that tinge a restless night. Mud sucks at slow boots sliding down, pushing up brambles, hollow-faced, hostile homes like burnt-out city slums. Travel sick with the inward journey. I look up, and they are there where they have always been, shocks of thick green hair in the brown baldness of winter. Yew trees huddled in on each other as if for warmth. Soft-veined, old arms of time beckon me to their counsel. I touch the ancient, the slow seeping memory of pagan, the warp and weft of tangled roots that sing of the time when earth once lost its battle with sky. Time stutters and stalls as I pad out thoughts in small steps, author of my own mystery play, where the broken mind is born again. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our next guest reader, Isabel Rogers. Isabel was Poet Laureate for Hampshire in 2016. Her poems have been published in many magazines, both here and in the United States. In 2014, she won the Cardiff International Poetry Competition, and her debut collection, Don't Ask, was published in 2017. Last year, Isabel published her first novel, Life, Death and Cellos, followed quickly by her second, Bold as Brass, featuring the adventures of Stockwell Park Orchestra. Both novels have been described as marrying the insight of Sue Townsend with the farcical humour of John O'Farrell. Isabel founded the North Hampshire Stanza Group and continues to support local poets through this inspiring forum. Isabel.
Thank you, Jenny. Yes, I did found the Stanza Group as part of the work that I did for the Hampshire Poet Laureate posts, and Sue was one of the founder members, and I well remember that very first meeting we had, sat in the sofa in Richard's living room on the sofa and trying to work out what we wanted to do, and she was a great help in laying the foundations of that. The poem of Sue's I want to read is also about her sister Ruth. Sally read one earlier. This one is also in the collection Stained Lips, and it's called Portrait of Ruth. Ruth lived life loudly in Andy Warhol colours, her billboard bright, and like Marilyn Monroe, difficult to ignore. She filled up rooms, stole light, eclipsing others, ate up her days, cooked Elysian meals, generously spiced with after-dinner stories. Loved theatre, played her last dramatic role, revealing a secret marriage in her will. Snapshots of her pepper memory, not in a linear way, and never black and white. She flung her pigments wide with a painterly richness, so dazzling and full, the space she leaves still gapes. And the poem of mine I'd like to share with you, I chose because Sue was absolutely brilliant at describing the world with a sort of magical overlay, and this poem seemed to fit with that. I think if only we could all cast spells like this. It's called Telephone Spell to Rewind Love. Take one drop of electrical silence. His words, carded and spun, will thread into a dark voltage and reassemble as some familiar magic. Space shrinks into the tremble of electromagnets. A breath held until he speaks will pleat time, and your wondrous, many-layered cake cannot be traced to those few crumbs and suspicion of sweetness on your tongue.
Thank you, Isabel. And now our next guest poet is Liz Berry. Liz is an award-winning poet. Her first book of poems, Black Country, described by The Guardian as a sooty, soaring hymn to her native West Midlands, was a Poetry Book Society recommendation, received a Somerset Maugham Award, and won the Geoffrey Faber Memorial Award and the Forward Prize for Best Collection in 2014. Liz's pamphlet, The Republic of Motherhood, was a Poetry Book Society pamphlet choice, and the title poem won the Forward Prize for Best Single Poem in 2018. A new book of her collaboration with photographer Tom Hicks will be published by Hercules Editions in 2021. Liz is a patron of Writing West Midlands and works as a tutor for organisations including the Arvin Foundation and the Poetry School. Liz.
Thank you, Jenny. Hello everyone, I'm so glad to be here for this really beautiful celebration of Sue's work and the wonderful supportive community she created. When I came to read for Loose Muse several years ago, I stayed over with Sue and her fab little dog Poppy, and I was just touched by how absolutely warm and kind and welcoming she was. I'm going to read a poem of Sue's called Autumn. This season shift paints scarlet on hips, crimson on haws. Powder fluff thistles nudge each other in the wind. Tiny ghost towns near cowslip constellations. Rose bay willow curls against grey sky, amongst wind-bitten bramble. Leaves, now copper gold, loose hold as beach begins undressing. Tall spikes of goldenrod, stark and unburnished now, will soon be flared by frost. A slippery path of mud runs alongside a fox's secret earth, and underneath, a mole tunnels velvet towards the light. And the poem of mine that I'll read is a poem called Bobola, and Bobola is a beautiful old black country word for moth. And moths are said to carry the souls and the messages of the dead back to us. Bobola. Darkling herald, see a flower face on a waning moon and spake her name aloud to conjure the voice of one you love and let slip through the wingles of death. In the owl light, When loneliness shines through your bones like a bare bulb, she'll come for you, little Psyche, bringing missives from the murmuring dark. She comes to all the night birds, cuckoos, thieves, the old uns and the babbies in their dim-lit wons, the boy riding his bike up Beacon Hill, heart thundering like a strange summer storm. And the messages she carries in her slow, soft flight, too tender to speak of, too heart-sore. But this, I'm here, I'm waiting. The love that lit the darkness between us has not been lost.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm Patsy Raff, and I've been involved with Loose Muse since Sue established the group in 2015. And I can honestly say that the wonderful guest poets, the open mic sessions, and the opportunities for publication, and the special events, all organised by Sue, have given me a great deal. And I know that all the members of our group appreciated her passion and her commitment. It's a big thank you to Sue. I've chosen to read Sue's poem Meadow Jazz for the exuberant celebration of nature and the vivid language, hallmarks of Sue's work. Meadow Jazz. The meadow is alive with transformation. Ragged robin becomes old man's beard, and tall purple thistles loose their blooms to powder fluff, while brambles break cover, running to ripe purple promises. The grass is singing. Fairy bees perform an orchestra of sound, cicadas lending their percussive note, while Art Deco butterflies zig and zag, dancing to the meadow jazz. Green berries caught changing into darker suits, sit speltly on elder trees, their champagne days over. Dog roses, having shed their pink and white confetti early, now push all their colour into flaming, swaying hips of scarlet. A heady mix of late summer and early beckoning autumn stirs the world I walk in. Piebald magpies squabble in twos and threes, almost ready for solo flight, and oil black crows foreshadow future winter. And my poem follows on really from the last line because it explores the season of winter alongside my thoughts also on the writing process itself. And it's called Winter Muse. An almost neon blue steals itself through blind gaps in thin curtains, shivers room to its bite, offers a slate clean day. Absence whispers outside and the clock sits frost still, thumb hour mitten stiff, finger too numb for pointing, at times wipe out. You walk to the window, gaze on snow, always new, blank for the possible scripts adrift in your head. Which way to go? To pad out for moonwalks, snowblind, make your mark a dazzle of steps as acid air burns, smoke's breath, or stop in your tracks, curl up, out-muffle the world, and even though ice ticks, seconds drip, hard ground shifts, follow the urge to go deep, dig in, dig in. I'd like to welcome Rebecca Goss. Rebecca lives in Suffolk, and she published her first collection, The Anatomy of Structures, in 2010, followed in 2013 by her much acclaimed second collection, Her Birth, written in the aftermath of the death of her daughter Ella at 16 months. This book was shortlisted for the Forward Prize for Best Collection and won the poetry category in the East Anglian Book Awards. In 2014, Rebecca was included in the Poetry Book Society's prestigious list of next generation poets. She's described poetry as an invitation to look very closely at something, and her work has been recognised for its pared down precision and scorching intensity. Rebecca worked closely with Sue on Stained Lips as her mentor, so it's wonderful that she could join us for this event. Rebecca.
Hello everyone, and thank you Patsy for that introduction. That lovely introduction, thank you. Yes, Patsy's right, I did work with Sue for between 2018 and 2019 on Stained Lips, and she was an absolute joy to work with. She was really warm and open and funny, but and it's been lovely to hear all your comments about her today, especially about how generous she was, such a generous member of the poetry community, I think. But I also really recognise that shy, modest Sue that you've spoken about. And I really, really hope that after all our mentoring sessions together, one of my aims was to get her to feel more confident and be more confident about her writing, because there was so much to be confident about. So I was absolutely delighted when the poems that we'd been working on did come out as the collection Stained Lips. I'm going to read the first poem from that collection, Invitation, because I feel it demonstrates the really beautiful way that Sue writes about the natural world, and also how she can navigate the terrain of sort of complex family relationships. Invitation, and it was dedicated to her sister. Travel with me to see new lands, and we will be light shaken from silver paper, hitting the world at once, seeking new pathways. We will explore the verticals of trees, trace lightning in a foreign sky through leaves, smell perfume from the cups of lilies, so waxed and heady we may drown in them. We will eat figs straight from the tree in far-off lands and count flames in sunflower heads, walk as if we had a plan but feel none, and be accidental in all our discoveries. My poem now, and I'm writing, since moving to Suffolk several years ago, I'm writing quite a few poems about my daughter growing up in the Suffolk countryside, and this is one of them, Molly and Pip. They were meant to know each other in this piece of countryside. They were meant to clamber its stiles, show us the fields as they saw them. They were meant to know seasons, conduct fair-headed inspections of bark, coevals at a river's edge. They were meant to know distance and run ahead with their dogs. They were meant to know birdsong and bracken and bees. They were meant to know each other, charting these lanes like we did.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you. I'd like now to introduce our final guest, Hilary Hares. Hilary lives in Farnham, Surrey. Over 100 of her poems have found their way out into the world, appearing in publications such as Magma, Ink, Sweat and Tears, Stand and Under the Radar. She's achieved success in a number of poetry competitions. Her first collection, A Butterfly Lands on the Moon, is sold in support of Winchester Muse. A second collection of childhood reminiscences entitled Red Queen is available to order from Marble Poetry. Apart from what she describes as candlelight scribbling in my garret, Hilary runs a variety of writing workshops and one-to-one coaching sessions. Proceeds from these activities are donated to causes that she supports. Welcome, Hilary.
Thank you, Patsy. I came very late to Loose Muse. It was about 2 years old, but as you've already heard, it welcomed me with open arms, and I very quickly became a mega fan, it has to be said. So my own poem is actually a response to Sue's poem, Invitation, which Rebecca just read so beautifully. And after we lost Sue, I read it again in a new light. And it seemed to me that she was inviting all of us to join her on the journey of words. So my poem is a response to that. And also, I think it reveals a little about the hidden nature of poetry, which is, of course, that our poems will outlive us all. Beyond Poetry, for Sue. Compelling as fireflies, clear as a summer bell, you're reaching out from a place beyond poetry, beyond the fourth wall of life's small stage, falling back across a field of words that dip and flicker, like a slow hand passing through shadow. Like a slow hand passing through shadow, you're reaching out from a place beyond poetry, beyond the fourth wall of life's small stage, calling back across a field of words that dip and flicker, compelling as fireflies, clear as a summer bell. And on a day when we are celebrating not only Sue's talent, but also her incredible legacy, which I think today is a fine example of how much it's going to live on. It's only fitting that we accord her the last poem. And I'm delighted to say it's a few words of encouragement to all of us that love the written and the spoken word. If we forget to write. If there is no time to hold a pen, move a hand to let ink flow, revel in black on white, what we reason and feel, so much will vanish. If we think it clever to run faster, delve deeper into a pool ever wider, scroll or swipe screens, but fail to handwrite, record thoughts, so much will be lost. 2,000 years can't be wrong, wasted, used up in a race to the future. Times New Roman in 12-point is universal, not personal. If we could just pause, then take up a pen, think and write down. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you to everybody who read today, our wonderful loose muses and our brilliant guest poets. I'm sure you will all agree that we've heard some beautiful and moving words, a fitting tribute for Sue. Hilary mentioned Sue's legacy, and we feel that the best way we can honour her legacy is to go on, to continue to promote women's poetry and writing, to keep alive the joy of creating and sharing. We will continue to organise monthly gatherings to showcase and encourage women writers, and this will be our main focus. But as always, as we have always done, everybody will always be welcome to join us, to read in our open mic sessions and to attend workshops. We formed a new association with North Hampshire Stanza Group, which is run by Isabel Rogers, who we met earlier. And we have a new name, which is Winchester Muse. a new Facebook page, which we'd be very grateful if you would like. And the first Winchester Muse gathering will be on Monday, the 12th of October via Zoom. We have two great guest poets to join us there. It's Wendy Klein and Dorothy Yamamoto, reviving their acclaimed performance of Bloodlines. As this is a Zoom session, joining is free. So if you'd like to read in our open mic or just come and listen, just message us on our Facebook page and we'll make sure that you get a link. Once again, thank you so much to everybody who read today. Many thanks to Becky and Nikki from Winchester Heritage Open Days for hosting this event, and to you for being with us.